Hey everyone, it's Taylorverse, and welcome back to Sin. Today is a special episode because I'm fucking high. We're starting on chapter 24. I'm sorry, I meant to tell you, Charles and I time together regularly in my home. So easy when you are trusted, and when you know all the arrangements of the others, where they are, when they will return. About what? My conversation with Dominic about the studio. Oh, it doesn't matter. Elizabeth and I spoke of it this morning. I gather you're building her a studio in the grounds at Frampton, and that you will spend less time in London. My tone was cold. Yes. Silence. If I can. Do you think you can? I intend to try, he said firmly. Why? I have surprised in myself a desire, indeed, a desire to do what is right, however hard. A passion for what is difficult, perhaps. I won't accept this. Don't say that. Stay calm. Charles, you're my only chance of goodness. Ruth, yes, I've never betrayed you. To Elizabeth? No. You would never do that, and obey it. Of course not. Watch carefully. Search for a degree of weakness in his resolution. Charles, within our world I have tried. I think I have been true. True to what? To what we've done. True to you. True to the things you hide. He looked away. I knew his secret soul. It hid in his body. What would he do when he must kill it? Could he? He is dangerous to me. He is strong. He may kill it. A death for me. A gift to Elizabeth. Another. Why not? No, I will triumph in this. I must. Consider tears? No, liquid lies. He'd lacerate me. He turned back to me. Dominic, has he decided against the studio? Yes. We were going to use it as a study for me, but it's unnecessary. I can easily work at home. Try for normality, Ruth. Delay him. Work? At what? I'm going to prepare an anthology. Rejections. What do you mean? Oh, I'll research rejections. Great authors have suffered. An interesting idea, don't you think? Good title. Yes, excellent. He smiles a little. Good. Good, Ruth. And Dominic? Dominic is content. I know he knows. Knows? No, Charles. But something in the way he looks at me. No knowledge of you, Charles. He is relaxing. He knows it. He wants to say fatal words. Stop him. He must steel himself to mean them. Stop him. I have a rage, Charles. A rage. I rage for you. And the fire jumped suddenly between us. He was engulfed. I fanned the fire with hair and breasts and thighs, and then rolled him, shuddering, into quiet darkness. And when it was over, there was anger, his awful anger, a different rage, internal, against himself than against me. I saw it in his eyes, in the bitter mouth. He moved, older-looking somehow, towards the door. He started to speak, but did not turn around. There is only one way, Ruth. I won't ever be alone with you again. Ever. If the chance occurs, I will walk out immediately. I must. You are... He passed his hand across his mouth to stop the words. An occasion of sin? His hand fell away. It became a fist. I will do this, Ruth. I will do this. Damn you, Charles. Don't say anything, Ruth. You're going to try, aren't you? I can see that now. But I won't help you. Not at all. I won't help you. I will try to undermine you in every way, and remember, I am here, waiting, watching, always ready. He leaned against the door. He was so large he covered it, as he so abundantly covered me. Oh God, then he was gone. Silently I screamed around the room, Dominic's room. I brushed against the globe, spherical, completed, stomach-like thing, and beat my own stomach. Onto the warm honey of my skin came a darker mark, a blueness, cold color. I started to shiver, to feel the cold. I wound a woolen shawl around me, blood-colored, to warm me. I paced for hours around my prison. Then I remembered some pact that still existed with a reality I had created and I feared had to maintain. I went to the bathroom to prepare for my husband's return. That night and the next morning I gave no sign. Appearance, small clue to reality, is easily assembled by women for deception. Though in England one must do this carefully, for it is more acceptable in England to feed the body than to clothe it. Though neither is deemed to be of importance, yet we, like everyone else, can read the signals. The cardigan is as potent a garment as a blue waistcoat. Goethe gave to Werther a fatal gift. Standing hours later, as I waited for Dominic, I was simply and perfectly dressed. I wore a navy belted dress, my pearls, navy leather pumps. My hair was brushed to its normal gleaming condition. My face, after the application of smoothing creams and the careful painting of a subtle mask, presented to my husband's eyes the appearance of his beautiful wife. That I had raged animal-like around my room, that I had been most deeply wounded, that thoughts of violence and ferocity had burst through all normal controls, that my life had arched back in agony and snapped, all this was hidden. For I was proud I had been rejected. I was not to be rejected ever, not in these matters. The knowledge of the constant betrayal of Elizabeth had not been unpleasing. Waiting with that knowledge that I might or might not impart, whispering it silently through weekends and dinners only to myself, that had been a satisfaction of considerable depth. Now I was to lose that also, unknowing she had defeated me, Elizabeth stealing what was mine, for he was most assuredly mine. I knew his agony. Could he bear it? For a while, perhaps. Would the habit of abstinence grow, or would desperation mount, so that he would beg, as I begged him, silently? Surely he must feel something beating at the ramparts of his body. Would I beg? No, for that would lessen his need. I knew him. It was essential in such an undertaking to know the enemy. He held from me which was mine, therefore he was my enemy. I would not show weakness to my enemy, never. Pride, strength, patience, the seeds had been sown in him, and grew in me. He would come to gather his harvest. For 1 month, 30 days, Charles Harding deprived me of the very sight of him. Things, I had no words for them, seemed to flutter and die in me. Endless daily deaths in some small cavity within me. Somewhere to the left, I think the pain first emanated from there. A weekend in Lexington was cancelled on Friday morning. Pressure of work, Elizabeth's voice, the sincerity of her apologies echoed round empty halls in my mind, and in Lexington we were not invited to Frumpton Manor. I needed a plan. I had to see him. Could I trick him into seeing me? I used the nearest available and most potent weapon, my family, particularly my son. I rang Elizabeth. The right words tripped fluently from my lips. Phrases like family gatherings, the boys, so close all together, and finally Mother Liz. mother's loneliness. Elizabeth agreed enthusiastically to have family half-term at Lexington. I heard her win Charles' agreement. Or do you secretly want to come, Charles, to Lexington to see me? His distant voice, trapped by the phone as he answered her question, beat a tattoo of desire on my skin. Yet I held on to the bars of myself and did not fail. Half-term at Lexington, autumn days, the leaf-strewn lake a broth of winter color, browns, gold, ruby reds, and the sky a high, cold, singing silver blue. Ferocity had etched something high, cold, and silver onto my face. Charles was an animal at bay, one who knew he had walked into the trap, because he had to, because he wanted to. As we all gathered in the main sitting room, I decided to be merciless. Damn you, Charles. To have thought of escape, damn you. I would have preferred you dead than not mine. His large body made sudden movements, startling out of character when he saw me. I walked deliberately towards him at the drinks cabinet. Are you in hell, Charles? I whispered the words. I hope you are. Hope he's what? Happy at spending more time in Frimpton. I always like to spend more time with Elizabeth. Vengeance. And I with you, Charles. And I with you, said Elizabeth. A happy couple. Do they get the note of irony in your voice, Dominic? Just like us, I smiled at him. Aha, he responded. Dominic, you've definitely decided against the studio. Yes, we really don't need it. I'm pleased. I don't think I want to sell it. I've been so happy there. It's been a lovely haven. I remembered an intricate ballet of lust, limbs and bodies angled so as not to harm the paintings. In her haven, her husband and I. Shall I shatter her now? Take a hammer? But I will lose him forever. You had a marvelous piece in The Daily by Brannington Orchard. Terrific for you, I would have thought. Thank you, Dominic. I can't connect to anything anyone writes about my paintings, even those who are kind to me. It's just something I have to do increasingly. The compulsion of the artist. Even though most minor artists feel driven to develop their minor talent, often accompanying its development with major displays of temperament. Have to, Elizabeth? The only god, art? Te absolvo, always on his lips. Such was the bitterness in my soul. My soul? I had fed it such a diet over the years that it had long ago hidden, small and hungry, from my bitter offerings. I don't think you really mean that, Ruth, Elizabeth replied. I know this is old-fashioned, but I believe that art should serve good. Dominic, you should work out a formula for good. If X equals kindness and Y equals, let's see, there really aren't many words that instinctively describe goodness, are there, Charles? I turned towards him, smiling. He looked back, unseeing. Courage, Stephen volunteered. Admirable, Stephen. He turned with relief to his stepson. But evil men have often been very courageous. Justice? Aha, the pagan virtues seem to appeal to you. Listen to me, Charles. Pagan virtues? Aunt Ruth? Stephen looked at me, fascinated. Yes, the virtues before Christ. Hard virtues, masculine virtues. I spoke severely. The words demanded it. Well, Mum, William interrupted, which do Stephen and I have, the pagan or the Christian virtues? I love the way William speaks, so gently. Dominic again. Dominic dominates. Stephen turned to Elizabeth. You're both good boys. Nah, oh God, Mom, never whisper that in public again. Stephen fell around the room as though wounded. Sorry, Stephen, sorry, William. Elizabeth laughed. Children are fucking stupid. I couldn't get the page to turn, and that's because the fucking page was just one page when I thought it was two, and it wasn't. You did badly there, Elizabeth. Dominic smiled at her. I know, Dominic, I know. Perhaps Christ was fed up with all that macho stuff, and that's why he started preaching about meekness and about patience, etc. And love with a capital L. Was he the first new man, do you think, Mum? Stephen, this is quite sacrilegious, said with a gentle smile. All her smiles were gentle. One can never show all the virtues at the same time. Charles, as he spoke, concentrated his gaze on the boys. The pagan and the Christian are virtues almost in opposition. Gentle courage, meek justice. Fate decides what virtues your life depends on. For example, Stephen, you might discover that only courage could save your soul. That you were kind, generous, and loving, but the Christian virtues were not required. Courage was the necessary virtue. Look at me, Charles. Charles, look at me. Like that if you want, but I've got courage. Why haven't you? What is the greatest virtue, Elizabeth? Dominic turned towards her. Speak to me of virtue, Elizabeth. Oh dear, I find these things difficult. Go on, Mom. Stephen interjected. There's no single quality that cancels out the others. As Charles said, you can be cruel and courageous, or truthful and proud. I'm sorry, I'm not good at absolute statements. Oh, come on, Elizabeth, stop looking for sympathy. You're doing okay. The boys would like to hear. It's important. I turned bright-eyed towards her. It's an attitude to the world, to others in the world, and to yourself. It's a belief based on a personal commitment to do the right thing in all the circumstances of your life. And I suppose this is my philosophy of life. You must prepare for action by thought, because evil actions spring from evil thought. So you have to develop in yourself goodness of thought. Good action will spring from that. It doesn't matter that it doesn't always work. It's almost always hard. Charles walked towards her. Indeed it is, Elizabeth. He sat on the edge of her chair. So it's in the soul, or heart, or mind? I asked, with some interest. Show respect, Ruth. The woman is sincere, Ruth. Yes, she nodded, and it requires everything. Her eyes are on her as on a god. His eyes are on her as on a god. Goddess. This perhaps I cannot fight, but fight I will. Mom, you're an angel. I always knew it. Stephen exploded from his chair. But when you talk of being good, I just want to be bad. Let's race around the lake. William, Aunt Ruth, come on. Let me show you how fast I am. He held out his hand to me. I'll come later, William said. I'm going up to the sheds to fix my bike. William liked to be alone sometimes. My independent, grave child. Will you come for a walk with me, Aunt Ruth? Stephen asked. I hesitated. I could not say I want to stay with Charles, your stepfather, to see if I can destroy his will, his desire to leave me. Yes, all right, Stephen, you go on, I'll catch you. Great, see you later, Aunt Ruth. They both jumped up like arrows speeding towards their target. The whoosh of their exits seemed to force the French windows open. They were gone. Youth had left the room. We sat silent for a moment and looked at one another, the way adults do, indulgent. My mother began. I wonder, Charles, would you drive me to Barnum? Could you bear it? It's only 10 minutes' drive. I promised Claude that I would take her some of our tomatoes for lunch. Ben picked them this morning. I'd rather like to give them to her myself. I'm at your service, Eileen, with pleasure. Oh, I haven't seen Claude for ages. I'll come too, I offered. There would be time, surely, in the presence of two old women, both a little deaf and slow for words, maybe. But Ruth, you never liked Claude. Mothers, the things they know, the things they remember. A life before one's own memory. No wonder we long for escape. They'd devour us if they could. Nonsense, Mother. Do you pass through the village? Dominic asked. Dominic, how many years have you been coming to Lexington? You have the worst sense of direction of anyone I know. Well, thank you, Ruth, but when we're here, we don't leave Lexington all that much, since I've never been to Claude's. How on earth would I know where it is? Marital banter, that's all, Charles. Don't look so worried. Well, let's start your education today. Come with us. Claude is a fascinating woman. She was in intelligence during the Second War. Charles, the peacemaker. Add to her war efforts 3 husbands all dead conveniently, and a considerable run of lovers. Ruth, darling, conveniently dead is not how I would describe 3 men I knew and liked. Joke, Mother, joke. This is not as I had planned. To be honest, apart from the fascination of Claude, I want to get some petrol for the car. Let me drive the 3 of you there. Dominic rises. But, Charles, if Dominic is going, it's hardly necessary for you to go as well. I tried for time. Ruth, I'd love to see Claude, and I can direct Dominic. He had escaped me. They left. Elizabeth headed towards the kitchen to talk to Alice about lunch. I walked after Stephen to the lake. Hello, Aunt Ruth. A short silence. Do you know I'm reading Madame Bovary at school? He sought to impress me. And what do you think of her? Well, I think she was trapped, within herself. No one to set her free. It's very good, Stephen. He blushed at me. I played a little with the look in his eyes. I sometimes feel trapped by my asthma. Then manly again, not wishing to seem as though he had looked for pity. Do you know what Flaubert had said when he was dying, Aunt Ruth? I did. Best to let him tell me. What did he say, Stephen? He said, I'm dying and that bitch Bovary will live forever. He laughed, thrilled with himself. Sorry about the word bitch, Aunt Ruth. Learned it from my French teacher. More laughter. Whoops of laughter. Stephen had a wonderful laugh. He took my arm. I think you're amazing, Aunt Ruth. He paused, looked at the ground. You're really, really pretty. That sounded yuck. Sorry, Aunt Ruth. I'm going to swim across the lake, Aunt Ruth, for you. Show you how brave I can be for you. Don't be ridiculous, Stephen. Go on up to the sheds. Help William with his bike. He looked at me, a question in his eyes. Then he shrugged, kicked a few stones, and said, Okay, Aunt Ruth. Bored, I turned away and started to walk home, lost in my contemplation of Charles, how to get him back. When I got to the house, Elizabeth was rolling the lemons to soften them. I chopped and scattered black olives onto the creamy pink and beige of the crab meat. I chilled the wine and warmed the bread. I went to my room to prepare myself before the lunch with Charles. Then I rejoined Elizabeth and Alice in the kitchen. I turned from the window for a moment, blinded by the sudden slanting ferocity of October's sun. A man stood blocking the kitchen doorway. It was Ben, and he could not speak. I grabbed him. I shook him. I pushed him against the door. Useless to ask. What happened? To ask, what is it? A face contorted in fear and agony almost obliterates the need for words. Then a name. Stephen in the lake. Asthma attack. I stopped for a second. Not William. Oh God, in whom I do not believe. Thank God. I am not a monster. With Elizabeth's cries of "Oh, no, no," and I ran to try to save her child. I ran across the lawn, through the garden, on and on, through the park, and then down to the lake. But someone had got there before me, William, my son, trying desperately to save Stephen. From the top of the hill I saw them together in the water. They seemed to rise slowly, gracefully, like dancers, as though some great force propelled them through the surface of the water, towards the sky. Stephen seemed to hug William to him, like a lover, unwilling to let go, fierce in possession. Winning, they went down, and the muddy lake closed over them. How many times? How many times had the lake closed over them? "Save yourself," William screamed out of me, and let him go, carried on the wind, into nothing. Then the muddy lake closed over them again, and still I ran, Elizabeth after me, down the long hill. I fell into the water, and I swam to where it seemed they had gone down. I dived into the black nothing, the murkiness. Why not blue waters clear for them? I dived again and again and again. Nothing. Filth, sediment, and darkness, and now pain. Physical pain. Something to fill me up. I came to the surface, and down again and again, over and over again. But I could not find their secret place. Elizabeth, far away from me, was frantically swimming around, diving over and over again. We swam towards the bank and fell on it. She held her arms out to me, love and pity, defeating me again. "Damn you, Elizabeth. Stephen brought him down. I know it. Stephen was trying to drown him, my William, trying to save him. Stephen brought him down. Oh, God, oh, God. Why should I call on you now? Oh, God, how I hate you, Elizabeth. My God, Elizabeth, you've done for me at last." I moved towards her and spat water over her, and then I took stones. I threw them at her. I made my hand a weapon, my palm held sideways like a knife, and I hit her jaw. I moved towards her neck. I moved, ready to kill. Then I saw a dead bird on the ground. I picked it up and splattered it onto her chest. She lay there weeping and whispered, "Ruth, don't. Think of our boys, our boys." And I stopped at last and looked down at her. Something was broken. I could not see through the blood. Whether I got to the bone or whether again I had only hurt soft tissue, the smell, that could have been the rotting body of the bird, parts of which clung to her dress, and not something rotten in Elizabeth that I had at last burst open. Not exquisitely, as I had dreamed, but with sick, defeated, ferocious grief. Then racing down the hill came the ambulance man, carrying their useless stretchers. I ran towards them, screaming, "They're at the bottom of the lake. I can't get them. The stretcher's useless. There is no body." Stephen's face floated into my consciousness. There are no bodies. They stood helpless, the willing helpers. Those trained to deal with dramatic deaths. They looked lost without a body, carefully to move and place onto their precious canvas altar. The fire brigade, their drivers are on their way. A young woman in a suit spoke. "Miss Garton, who are you?" I almost spat the words at this intruder. "I'm Sarah Duncan, and this must be—" She turned towards Elizabeth. "Elizabeth Harding, I'm Stephen's mother. The phone call said 2 boys, Stephen and William." "Your sons?" "Yes." "I am so sorry. Miss Garton, if we went to the house it would be better." "No. Miss Garton, please. No. Lady Harding." Elizabeth shook her head. Blood dripped down and mixed itself with some particles of flesh from the bird. And Elizabeth's shirt was blue, not white as normal. I had not noticed this before. The doctor bent down from the case and took the gauze and tinctures and started to repair some of the damage I had done to Elizabeth's face. "I fell," she said, "badly, running toward the boys, onto the bird, as I fell onto the edge of the lake when I was getting out." I said nothing. Someone had handed me a large blanket to wrap around my shoulders. "Miss Garton, Lady Harding, it would be better for you to remove your wet clothes." "No." from both of us. Healers hate to feel useless, hate to recognize that nothing works. Like priests, they need to prove their power, most particularly in extremis. Except that, unlike priests, they have nothing to offer the dead body. Certainly not what the priest can offer, a new disembodied existence, still with us but not seen. Why should the dead want to stay, watching the weeping, but not able to join in? After all, it was their life that was lost. No future, time finished for them, full stop. No new sentence, no new paragraph. The boys' lives, a short story, their future gone, no future. Never, 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 never. 5 nevers. I always thought that significant, and kill. Lear needed to be to the 6 beats for his rage, the 2 interwoven, of course. For who has grieved, who has not raged, and raged again? And now along the top of the hill ran dark figures, rubber-armored for the water, their heads encased in monstrous balaclavas for the deep. I swam with them to the point of my last vision of my son as he left me, another clasped too tightly to him. How mothers hate all others who embrace their child too tightly. They know how easy it is to squeeze life away, so that only a body remains. The remains of his life, this body which I had so loved, came finally to the surface, attached to the other. The boy's legs, like tree trunks, were wrapped around each other, like lovers in sleep, motionless. Stephen's arms locked around William's waist. William's face seemed pressed deeply into Stephen's chest, as though it were a part of Stephen's body. Stephen's head was thrown back. His last act had been to gasp for air before he brought William down. How well Stephen had known that all his life what it was to gasp for air. And suddenly it was what I had to do, not to cry, just suddenly, convulsively, to gasp for air. I lived. Dead bodies are heavy. The young divers, like warriors in a battlefield, tried to prise the boys apart. No, Miss Garton, leave them like they are. Don't separate them. But don't separate them. The bodies, like a single statue, were laid on the bank. It seemed a single death, so much did they resemble a sculpture of one long, fine young man. His head was that of Stephen, and the legs those of William. The men began their work, 2 of them gently releasing the bodies as the others forced oxygen into their rejecting lungs, trying, these strangers, to deceive death. But death had been clever. With one's weakness and the other's love, death had harvested them both. And the sun still shone in a weak October way. It did not withdraw in sorrow, not even when death's triumph was finally acknowledged. Lexington waited for our entourage as we slowly walked towards it with our dead children. The boys, our sons, who after all would not now have the east or west wing. Perhaps Lexington rejoiced that in time it might be left alone at last. Through the French windows and onto the terrace ran Charles and Dominic. My mother stood motionless, eyes closed. Oh my God. Dominic's voice. He did not run to me. He turned, retching into the protection of the half-hedge that separated the terrace from the lawn. Charles stood looking down at the stretchers guarded on either side by Elizabeth and me, standing behind the bearers. He covered his face for a moment, then he turned and removed my mother from the path of the carriers with their heavy burden. At the front of the house, the waiting ambulance received its cargo. We followed slowly in cars, not ready yet for a longer separation. The young policeman stayed with Ben to take his statement. At the little village hospital, questions were asked of us by the gentlest of police sergeants and the most solicitous of doctors, as though in searching for the answer to how we could find the answer to why. At some stage, by unspoken consent, we drove through the dusk back to Lexington, a Lexington we could no longer recognize. It had tricked us, made us feel safe all those years. In my soft weaving of hatred, I had never felt afraid. Had I defiled Lexington? No. Elizabeth's son had killed mine. I bore no guilt, not in this. I will not accept any other interpretation. For that way madness lies. Damn, these people are losing absolutely fucking everyone. Like, well, at least Elizabeth is. Like, she lost her fucking first husband, and now her son and her nephew. And then son and nephew. But, like, well, I guess that's not a lot of people to die. 3 people in a book, but I don't know. Anyway, it is pointless to describe the next few days. Those who know, know. Those who don't will never understand. Maybe that's why I'm sympathizing with it, because my grandpa and uncle died kind of within, like, the same year differences that Elizabeth went through. Like, that gap is about the same gap we had. So maybe that's why I'm connecting more than I would in another book. That and in another book I read with death in it like that. That wasn't like a horror book or anything like that, because you kind of root for people to die in horror. But in this kind of book, you don't. And the last time I read a book like that, I hadn't had anyone die before. So, maybe that's why I feel more attached to that. Yeah. How long have we been recording? Oh, wow. We're almost done with the book. And I'm really tempted to, like, make a really long episode. I think I'm gonna. The funeral. The boys came from their school to represent the pupils. With their sturdy legs, they burned my eyes. With their faces, they poured vinegar down my throat, and with their sweet voices, they poisoned my ears. The sad headmaster and solemn teachers now gave life reports on the boys, whose time they had expected to measure out in terms. A government minister and figures from the world of affairs and people from the worlds of arts and publishing and academia mingled uneasily together. No one knew what to say because the words did not exist. Lexington gathered them in and impressed them and fed them after we had laid the boys, now separated in their graves, side by side in the village churchyard beside my family, my grave child, William. Now most truly a grave child. He should never have been mine, too good for me, Was there a pattern here? Some scheme to destroy me? If any of my family had been any good, couldn't they have interceded on our behalf? Then I remembered I did not believe in God or in the afterlife, and I found that comforting. Yeah, so we're now on chapter 27, and I think, hold please. Ow, I just got a paper cut. I think there's only 31 chapters. Plus, there's only, 164 pages, and we're on 135. You know what? No, I will split it into 2 videos. We're gonna end this here. Haha. Leaving it on a little bit of a bad place, but it'll be alright. Show me what you think about that part in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.